Next, we have the game playing out in a real way that is not getting enough attention. I see it as part of the boy who cried wolf syndrome. You know, there's so many examinations of the former president and kind of a sliding scale of how legitimate they are or useful, in my opinion. But this trial over these allegations by E. Jean Carroll, whether you buy it or not, it's gotten very real. It's no longer a what-if situation, you know, like what's happening in Georgia or any of these other things that's going on with him. They're real stakes. This trial's going on. She's on the stand, giving real testimony, not getting blown out of the water. And there's a real jury that isn't about counting votes from Republicans or Democrats. They could convict the former president. We have not been here before. This is the closest we've seen the former president to any real legal jeopardy. So we need to talk about this case. Author E. Jean Carroll is suing Trump for battery and defamation. She alleges that Trump raped her in a department store in a dressing room over 20 years ago. Now, Trump's lawyers obviously jumped on that. Why now? Okay? Why didn't she speak? Why didn't she scream in that moment? Why didn't she call the police? Why didn't she go to the hospital? Or even remember the date of the alleged incident? Those are real questions, but they failed to stifle the process. So here we are. Joining us now to break it down are the better minds. High-profile defense attorney Mark Geragos and Florida State Prosecutor Dave Aronberg. Let's first start with why this case is at all. Aronberg, what happened to the appeal by Trump's team that this law that allowed this case to go forward by removing the statute of limitations is unconstitutional? What happened to that appeal?
This went forward because that law is allowed. New York state law could change the statute of limitations. They have the power to do so. The bigger problem is the other lawsuit where the Department of Justice is stepping in to defend Donald Trump, and that's in the courts. That's about defamation. This is about rape. There is a defamation part of it because Trump allegedly defamed E. Jean Carroll after he left the White House. But no, the state of New York can change the statute of limitations. This is going forward. But keep in mind, this is not a criminal case. This is a civil one. And thus some of the constitutional rights that a criminal defendant have don't apply here. And there's no beyond a reasonable doubt. All E. Jean Carroll has to do is to prove her case by a preponderance of the evidence. Is it more likely than not that Trump did it? And the fact that Trump is ghosting the jury is not a good look for him.
So ghosting the jury means that he has not been there in person. Obviously, the defendant doesn't have his civil or criminal. He doesn't have to be there. He doesn't have to take the stand. But how does this play to a jury? Counselor Geragos, there had been an expectation that Trump's lawyers would blow E. Jean Carroll out of the water. Have you seen that yet in terms of what we're hearing? Especially today, there was a big cross by Trump's legal team.
No, I haven't seen that yet. But then again, the judge is, as many federal judges do in these kinds of cases, are reining in the legal team. I can't tell you the number of times I've had a federal judge lean down and tell me as I'm doing a cross or get in the middle of my cross-examination and tell me it's not state court. And it looks like Joe Tacopina is on the receiving end of that. As of today, in fact, they recessed. The judge was basically interjecting himself on the cross-examination. And to David's point, this is not a criminal case. They could have required him to be there under the civil rules, but they did not. I think they like the look of him not showing up, not giving the jury the time of day. You know, one of the arguments is, ladies and gentlemen, you have to be here each day. He couldn't even be bothered. So they had written a letter asking the judge to excuse him, which he apparently has done, and that may come back to haunt him.
So, look, the big headline here is not to hype it. Trump's not going to jail. That's not what this is about. But you could have the former president, Dave, take a verdict here that is against him and that says, yes, for civil liability, Donald Trump did this to E. Jean Carroll. I mean, that is now not in the realm of possibility, but probability.
Yeah, it never looks good when you have been found to have committed rape. That's what the jury is being asked. And when Trump says he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and get away with it, perhaps, can he be charged and found to have committed rape and get away with it? Well, amongst his MAGA base, yes, but amongst the general election voters in swing states that he needs in the 2024 election, I would say no. So this is a really important case.
Hey, thank you for watching. Please go to newsnationnow.com, newsnationnow.com, and you can find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button down below. Then you will get more of NewsNation's fact-driven coverage.